this man, he got some good news for you. Hey, man, listen. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house. Welcome, everybody, to episode 652. This is Dr. Ron, host of Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you tuning in today. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I want to just talk to you today about the Hantavirus and why you probably are fine and not to have fear. But before I get into that subject, you may or may not remember that I'm working on a series of structure that is really taking me more time than I anticipated. It was going to be called the Dr. Ron Doctrine, a foundational series where we get to the cellular integrity. Because modern chronic diseases, they begin with loss of cellular integrity, metabolic dysfunction, chronic inflammation, environmental overload. And what we have been finding, and I have been discussing for many years now, is a medical system that is focused on symptom management rather than the root cause restoration. And we will be covering during this series inflammation, cellular integrity, cell membranes, fatigue, the Flexner Report, big pharmaceutical companies, protocols and guidelines as part of a narrative where each podcast will build on the previous one. So once you start this, it'd be great if you could to continue the series, because once you're diagnosed with a disease, I just want to remind you that the disease is often downstream consequences of a damaged energy production or membrane dysfunction or chronic inflammation or toxic overload. In other words, you have been sick for quite a while before you qualify to be named a specific disease. And what occurs years before you get that diagnosis is mitochondrial problems, cholesterol, electromagnetic fields, blue light, fatigue, microplastics, seed oils, muscle loss, pharmaceutical overreach, polypharmacy. But everything you'll see as we go through this series is connected. And it all started with the Flexner and the Rockefeller report. And that will be our first podcast when I'm sure that everything is the way I want it. So thanks for having patience with this, but I want to make sure that this series is foundational, a foundational experience, and a public educational initiative as we explore the biological, the environmental, and the historical roots of modern chronic disease and why everybody is taking so many drugs. So with that being said, let's get on with today and talk about the Hantavirus. Seems like everybody's talking about it, right? So, this is infectious diseases. It's not my forte. I have two specialties, emergency medicine and family practice, along with other certifications, but infectious disease isn't my specialty. So I have done some research, and I want to tell you where I stand on this right now, because a lot of people are saying, Hanta, what now? Well, we don't want to have the fear that was induced by the COVID scam, right? We don't want to go there. This Hantavirus is not new. It's not something that emerged from a lab or appear out of nowhere. Hantaviruses are a group of viruses carried by rodents that can cause severe disease in humans. And people usually get infected through contact with the infected rodents or their urine droppings or saliva. Okay, so this isn't transmitted person to person. Rodents. Yep, we're talking about mice and rats. And the key thing to remember is that hantaviruses are primarily zoonotic. Zoonotic, meaning they spread from animals to humans. Person to person spread is not a feature of most of these infections, unlike what we saw during the COVID scam. That means that infections are limited to single cases most of the time. So remember, most hantavirus strains do not spread person to persons, but people are freaking out because why? Here's the hook. There was a cruise ship, the MV Honduras, that departed Argentina on April 1st of this year. It was doing a polar expedition, Antarctica, South Georgia, remote islands, a beautiful trip between April 6th and the 28th. Illness onset began for several passengers: fever, GI symptoms, rapid progression to pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and shock. And by early May, sorry to say, 3 people had died. It's devastating. It's scary, especially if they are part of your family or friends. And it's understandable. But here's where the context matters. The WHO, and boy, you know how I feel about that organization, has stressed that the risk to public is low. Of the 8 suspected cases, 5 were confirmed as hantavirus, specifically the Andes virus, which is endemic to Argentina, where the cruise ship embarked about 5 weeks prior to that first case. Now, that's the leading hypothesis. Argentine health authorities published a report showing the index case. That's the first person to get sick. And that index case had gone on a 4-month road trip spanning Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina before boarding that ship and returning to Argentina from Uruguay only 4 days before that April 1st departure. So this person was potentially exposed to infected rodents during the road trip through Patagonia and then boarded the ship. That's important to remember. The Andes virus reservoir is Argentina's long-tailed pygmy rice rat, a small rodent common in Patagonia. And the indexes, that's the first person that they diagnosed with this, the 4-month travel across precisely those high-risk ecological zones. Okay, so what makes the Andes virus specifically different from other hantaviruses? Because I know a lot of people are worried about that. So there are over 50 types of hantavirus. Most of them, you get it from a rodent. End of story. The Andes virus is the exception. The Andes virus found in South America is the only currently known hantavirus for which limited human-to-human transmission among close contacts has been documented. I want you to hear that. I don't want to cover that over. Most hantaviruses do not spread human to human, but there is some limited knowledge that this particular Andes hantavirus can have human-to-human transmission among close contacts. And words matter, right? Remember the word limited. It matters hugely because even the WHO has emphasized that the risk of an epidemic is low due to this rarity. And its only limited spread among close contacts have been observed in previous outbreaks. It's not an airborne virus. You cannot catch it by walking past someone at a grocery store. Dr. Celine Grounder with the Health News Network put it plainly, quote, you really need a virus that is far more infectious, that's more easily transmissible through the respiratory route. This is not the next pandemic, unquote. Got that? So you hear about people dying. That is horrible. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this bit of information, but strains found in the Western Hemisphere, including the Andes virus, typically cause Hantavirus pneumonia or pulmonary syndrome, a respiratory illness that has a high mortality rate of about 35%, and that's according to the CDC. Well, you say that's high, and it is, but here's the thing. The high fatality rate in a disease that almost nobody gets is very different from a disease that's highly contagious. In 2025, across the entire Americas, 8 countries, there were 229 cases. There were 59 deaths across the entire hemisphere. And just remember, the flu infects millions of people per year. In 2025, through all 8 countries, 229 people. And just because you're exposed to this virus, the hantavirus, doesn't mean you're going to get sick. And a lot of people who get sick recover with just supportive care. Fatalities are typically among people who are older or who have comorbidities associated with severe respiratory illness. In other words, they have chronic obstructive lung disease, they're smokers, and have compromised breathing. So who should be paying attention? Well, activities that increase risk include cleaning enclosed or poorly ventilated spaces, farming, forestry work, and sleeping in rodent-infested dwellings. If you're cleaning out an old cabin, or you're getting cleaning out the barn or a storage unit, that's when you need to be thoughtful. And the guidance is ventilate first. Do not dry sweep or vacuum. Wet, contaminated material with disinfectant. Wear gloves. Follow public health guidance. Do not stir up dust in rodent-infected spaces. That's the main preventative message. Be careful. Use your common sense. And can you go about your normal city life? Yeah, honestly, you're fine. The WHO assessed low global risk for the cruise-linked event as of May 4th. Travelers should avoid rodent exposure and seek care quickly if symptoms appear after a credible exposure. Well, they did have a great response, didn't they? The outbreak has been managed through a coordinated international response and laboratory investigations. Health agencies in Europe, South Africa, Singapore were all coordinated within days. So this time the system is working, but we don't want this to generate fear. We'll get a little bit more into that in a second. So let's just summarize a few things. 1, the hantavirus is real and serious, and the people affected by this outbreak deserve our compassion. 3 people died. We can't forget that. That's not nothing. 2, this is not the COVID of the past years. It is not spreading easily between people. And Maria van Kerkhove said most people will never be exposed to this. And she's with the WHO. And number 3, if you live near or work in areas with rodent activity, know the practical prevention steps. Otherwise, the risk to your daily life is very extremely low. Knowledge over fear. Always knowledge over fear. Always. That's what we're here for. Knowledge over fear. Just want to go, and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny has written a nice Substack article about this. And she says that before 1993, in the Four Corner region of the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah, where they meet, only 31 hantavirus cases had been reported before 1993. Only 4 had been reported. The initial outbreak affected 24 previously healthy young adults who suddenly developed fever and muscle aches, rapidly progressive respiratory failure, and within days, a few of them did die. When the CDC investigators, what they did, they eventually identified a previously unknown hantavirus carried by the deer mouse. It was later named Surnombre. The deaths resulted from what became known as the hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS to be for short. But there was no hysteria over that. It wasn't on every news channel every day. And so from 1993 on, CDC has begun a national surveillance for this virus. So as of 2023, 30 years, 890 confirmed hantavirus disease cases have been reported in this nation. Okay. And that included non-pulmonary cases where patients tested positive for the virus infection but never developed any pulmonary disease. So of those 890, 309 were classified as HPS with a case fatality rate of 35%, which is about 10 deaths a year over a 30-year period. Okay? I mean, it's sorry to say people did die, but it's not a reason to panic. So we don't want anybody hyping the concern. We don't want people thinking they should be wearing masks or socially distance themselves just because we were preconditioned to do this during the COVID scam. Okay, this is not we have a problem. We have to not have a reaction that is hysterical, and we do not have to have a solution that includes a vaccine. But just to put this in context, before the public even has time to understand what the concern is about, we learned that there are 13 documented hantavirus vaccine and gene therapy programs in active development. That's why I went through the history of this in the beginning. Okay. And it's disturbing to me, as Dr. Tenpenny writes, how quickly the public is already asking panicky type questions about hantavirus prevention and treatment protocols, even though the few cases that have occurred are thousands of miles away from where they live. We should be talking about rodent control, environmental hygiene. Okay, so be careful about the hype. Knowledge is your power. Knowledge is your power. And please control your fear, because fear sells. And during COVID, powers knew this and they could weaponize it. We don't want to be locked down again. We don't want to have a sense of urgency pushed upon us because it's not there. We don't want the fear. Well, thanks for listening. I hope this episode helps you to breathe a little easier. No pun intended. Share it with someone who needs it. Stay curious, stay calm, and we'll see you next podcast. Remember, the podcasts are broadcast primarily out of Podbean, and that would be docronradio.podbean.com. Download the app and you'll know when the next one is, and you'll know when the Dr. Ron series starts. Also, tap into my page called docronradio.substack.com. That's my Substack page, where I also will keep you informed of new podcasts and the Dr. Ron series. And do not have fear. And that's why I'm here to not only give you the truth, but to amplify the truth. So with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. We'll have Freddie take us home.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in